the Digital Marketing Punkcast.
Hello and welcome to the active resistance against bad digital marketing, missold by a seedy underworld of digital agencies to small business owners across the world. Every episode, I try to help you clear up the mysteries surrounding this digital voodoo that we call digital marketing, as we strip away the geek speak and the sales bullshit you may normally hear to give you clear and accessible answers, which allows you to empower yourself with your own DIY digital marketing. This is the Digital Marketing Punkcast, and I am Digital Marketing Punk. This is episode number 9, and today we are talking about sourcing ideas for content, certainly for your content marketing, for your website, for your social media, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be really important, and today I have brought in Adam Bennett from DigitalID to help me source some ideas for your content, and also discuss the ideas of finding those sort of content ideas as well, and organizing them and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be really cool. This episode was recorded in October of 2018. So, content. Really important thing. It's really important to be talking about, and it's one of those gripes which I have, because loads of digital agencies out there will be going, oh, you need to write some content, you need to be doing it for SEO. If you don't write content, Google won't like you, blah, 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 which is true to a degree. However, you can't just write content for the sake of writing content. That's not how this works. You have to write good content, and I know that sounds really vague and really difficult, but it's true. You have to write content that people actually want to read, and that's the difficult bit, and getting the ideas for that can be extremely difficult, because a good idea for content can lead you to great things, and it can be really important, and you can find that one bit of content with that one key good idea, as long as it is followed through properly and executed perfectly, then you can find that it can have a massive impact on your marketing strategy, and increasing your results, increasing your traffic to your website or your Facebook page or whatever. That one idea can really skyrocket you. It's not about creating loads. It's not about just churning it out like some kind of industrial machine. It's just about creating quality content that people want to read. I don't know where this idea came from, really, about just churning out content, because if you're just writing content for content's sake, and you are just churning out what everyone else has already talked about, you've got no original ideas, there's a bigger, better content out there, or something that you're writing about, where do you think that's ever going to take you? Google's not going to like you, because Google's going to like the other piece of content. So you need to be thinking properly about the ideas, and that all boils down to where you source those ideas from. So I've brought on Adam Bennett from DigitalID today, a really cool guy. Had a really cool conversation with him about how to source that content. Now, he works for a big organization, okay? And I don't want you to misunderstand me. I'm not thinking this is only for big organizations. You can boil down the ideas that Adam talks about today into those for a small business as well. It's just about a different way of thinking about how to get those ideas from. So, this is my conversation with Adam Bennett from DigitalID. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so I am here with Adam Bennett. He is here with me today to talk about sourcing ideas for content. Adam, introduce yourself. What do you do? Where are you from?
Hi, Tom. My name's Adam Bennett. I'm the digital marketing manager for an in-house company called DigitalID. Not to be confused for an agency, we're actually the UK's largest ID card company. So my kind of day-to-day activity is obviously SEO, paid search, content, looking at the overall website, usability, and again, just kind of ongoing strategy to make sure the brand grows.
Awesome. Fantastic. So we're here to talk about content today. A really important part of any digital marketing campaign. That being said, I'd say that probably about any installment of any idea of digital marketing at all. But we're here to talk about content, and it is important because it feeds into almost everything that you do. If you're talking about social media, if you're talking about SEO, if you're talking about link building, it all feeds back into content. So for someone that hasn't attempted to write content for their business website before, why is it important to be able to, first of all, write content, and second of all, to be able to find good ideas for that content?
Yeah, I'll use obviously our site as an example here. We're quite a niche company in terms of the products that we sell. It's not something that you kind of wake up one morning, you go and actively search for an ID card printer. There's got to be a kind of need behind that product. So in terms of obviously being able to find those good ideas internally, and why these brands that are in those kind of niche areas should be writing content is, for me, it's what the business has been built on. It's that knowledge internally that you will not find anywhere else online. As in, that we kind of live and breathe those products 24/7. We know what has been successful. We know what's up and coming. We know how to speak to those people in the right kind of tone. It just kind of, obviously, it grows from there, that a lot of the content that these brands can obviously create, and we've done it ourselves in the form of video, blog, other different channels, is we can write them in a way that answers the customer's problems a lot easier. And 9 times out of 10, we're answering them before they kind of even know it's a problem. So I think that's, like I say, is the real kind of benefit, that if you're not writing this content internally and you're using, third parties to source that for you, is it going to come back as original as it could be? If it's written from, one of the directors, one of the managers, one of the sales team, they're in that day in, day out. They kind of know the terminology. They know how to speak to the customers. And that's where I think a lot of these brands in-house can get a lot of benefit from, writing it, authentic content. It's original. That's what people want nowadays. They want that kind of inside knowledge that they feel they're getting as an extra from the company. And it's a great way for brands to differentiate themselves from the competition as well.
You're absolutely right, and you've hit on a point which I'm going to go completely off script here. You've hit on a point which really, really bugs me, and I obviously work for an agency day job, and you make a good point, and that is that I will often get asked by the sales team. I'm not saying all salespeople are evil, by the way, but I'll often get asked by the sales team, well, can we write content for this client? Can we write content for X, Y, and Z client? And my answer is always the same. It said, yeah, we can. I can write content until the cows come home. That's not a problem. It'll be absolute rubbish though, because I have no idea about the expertise that goes into whatever X, Y, and Z client actually does. I'm not a foggiest. I can go and research it, but if I've gone and researched it, then it's not original anyway. Correct. It's not unique. Yeah. No one cares. So it's really important. I always go back and say, well, they really should be writing content themselves. They should, or we can provide training for them to be able to write content, or we can provide training with that content creation idea and how they can build it out and do it properly rather than just slap bang. And you've really hit on an important point then, which is, if you are thinking of going with an agency, and I'm not saying don't go with an agency. Obviously, I work with one myself, but if you are thinking about that, then there needs to be a little give and take. It's not a straightforward service where you can, you say, you deal with this for me, I don't want anything to do with it. Doesn't work like that, okay? Has to be a little bit of give and take. You are the knowledge, you're the product expert, you have the knowledge, which, like you say, you work in it day in, day out, so you'll know things that no one else knows, and that is valuable, and that's the key, and that's what makes people want to read that thing, because they haven't found it anywhere else. So that's a really good point.
I think just touching on that as well, like one of the notes I put down here is that process, obviously, that A, shows the brand as the kind of leader in that field. And again, it puts that transparency and that kind of human behind that content, that real person that shows a bit of passion. It's something that they've built their brand around. So to them, it is their baby. They're showcasing it. They're getting it out there. And that will come across in content that's written in-house, better than what it would be through a third party. Like you said before, you've got to research it. You're taking somebody else's knowledge online, and then putting it into an offline format. So there's always that, pros and cons of doing that approach. But for us, like the biggest win we've had, obviously, is all around video-based content. It sells our products and obviously the solutions a lot easier. It's a great way of putting better visuals to products. But at the same time, it's when people watch the video and then they speak to that person on the phone. There's that connection.
Yes.
I know who you are. I've seen you on that video. It's what our sales guys often gets, spoken and said to them. Are you such a person off the video? And it just opens up a conversation. And that might have not happened if we hadn't have had that video or that piece of content.
Exactly.
So again, it's just an easier way in for that customer to obviously contact us or find us. And just touching on your other point before about kind of like finding these good ideas, from the content internally. It's looking at kind of what your brand has got access to that an outside agency or a third party hasn't. So, your kind of sales team, or even people like your customer services team, whether you've got a support team, designers, depending on obviously your niche, but they're going to be asked questions day in, day out. So, we source that information back from our different teams. We look at regular occurrences, how we can then put that into content or where that content needs to be within the website. So it's not always necessarily awareness stage content for blogs or again for YouTube. It might be something simple as a design process that we've missed from one of the landing pages. So again, that's going back in. It's a form of content and it's helping the journey along. The other things obviously that we use again is live chat. So again, if you're using live chat or again, any kind of like software to look at the activity, so things like Hotjar again has been a good one for us. We're able to ask direct questions, get feedback. And again, same with live chat, seeing what people are actually asking, because that's what they're thinking about when they land on the site or on a particular page. So we're able to take that and go, okay, that question there would be really good if that is then put into a better format. And then it's kind of getting that question and going, okay, what is the best format for this? Is it blog? Is it video? Is it a series of images, kind of a step-by-step process? And that's allowed us to be able to do that. And if we didn't have things like live chat or Hotjar, we're missing out on keyword gaps throughout the site.
I think you've hit on a couple of points. Just to clarify a couple of things first. Obviously, you mentioned things like the live chat. Everyone will know what the live chat is when you're on a website. It'll spring up and say if you want to chat to a member of the support team, whatever, you can get them. Hotjar, by the way, is a software which allows you to. It's basically like a screen recording software. Is the most simplest way I can put it. So you can see literally what users are doing while they're on your website and interacting with your website. It can give you heat maps about where people's eyes are going, where their cursor's going, what they're clicking on, all that kind of stuff, and that provides such a useful amount of information and data when you're using when you have a website to be able to feed that back in. The other point that you made, which is really interesting, is about utilizing the staff that are in your business and company, because you're absolutely right. If that your salespeople are not just there to ring the bell and sell things all the time, your salespeople actually hold a lot of information. And I'm guilty of this more as anyone. I will think as salespeople as the people that just go out and that they sell and then they come back to operations and they we do the actual stuff, but they're full of information, which is what customers or potential customers are talking about, what they want to know about, what questions they're asking, all these, and this key word here, these pain points of customers and clients. These are all gold when it comes to actual content writing. Customer service is exactly the same. What your customers coming back to you and asking you questions about, and can you write something, record something, film something that's going to be valuable to them so they don't have to ask that question again. That comes across in a way which is, really valuable and useful and makes you look, wow, these people know what my problems are. These people know what my issues are. And therefore I'm more inclined to go and use you.
Yep. And just one thing to add there as well is, like with ourselves, obviously with DigitalID, obviously we have a kind of sales team that's broken down into 3 sectors. So we've got a private sector team, a public sector team, and an education sector team. And again, going back to the sales team being that kind of front line of answering the questions or being asked the questions, because obviously the kind of guidelines, should we say, are very similar for all of those clients within those sectors. if our team are being asked a question about an educate or from an education client, and it's something new that we haven't heard of before, then by getting that information, we're able to then take that and actually look at, is this happening across the landscape? Are we going to get the same question from another 5 to 10, education organisations in the next week? Is it something that's being rolled out bigger, for their sector specifically? If that's the case, then all right, we'll have a look into it. We'll do our research. Okay, where does that then fit into the customer journey? Does it now become an awareness piece? Is it a consideration? Or again, is it a new problem that they're going to encounter in a couple of months' time that, can we help them along that way now so they don't encounter that problem? And that's been really good, especially for the education sector.
I think before we get too ahead of ourselves here, I suppose one of the other questions is sort of, what do business owners, the people that are going to be doing the actual marketing and the content marketing, what do they need to understand before thinking up these ideas or sourcing these ideas? What should they be sort of preparing themselves? How should they be preparing themselves before they go away and actually do this action of thinking up ideas, sourcing content, sourcing ideas?
For this, I'd say it's broken down into two areas. So that the first one, which is a big one for me, is the actual goal behind producing this content. So, why is your brand wanting to start producing this content? So that could be anything from, just becoming the expert leader in the field, being known as that go-to site, that authority for this information. Is it around traffic? Are you just trying to generate more traffic to the site via, blogs or different pieces of content? Is it lead generation? Which is a big one for most companies, which kind of ties into the next point, which is content upgrades. So are you trying to create, a lot of this awareness stage content that then you can ask people to upgrade to a better version? You're capturing obviously the lead. Is it brand awareness or is there sales on the back of it? So I'd say first one is looking specifically at what the goal is. Why are you wanting to produce this much content? And then the second thing that ties in there is the audience, for the brand. So what do your audience want? What stage are they at? How can you reach them? What format of content do they prefer to read? Which has been quite a big one for us, because within our sector, although we know the kind of organisations within each three sectors, the actual buyer varies across the board. So our buyer can be anybody from a HR manager to an office manager, a security guard, head of IT, an estates manager, a facilities manager. So the content obviously there is very similar in what we're trying to get across, but then obviously we have to look at how we tailor that to each one of those different personas, should we say?
Yeah.
And again, looking at how do we reach them? Is there many facilities managers Facebook groups? Is there LinkedIn groups? Is there forums? Those are probably the more traditional routes for us, rather than, let's say Facebook ads on promoting that piece of content. Or again, you don't direct. So yeah, it's kind of looking at those two mainly. So first one, what was the goal? Second, obviously, is the audience and how that audience kind of reacts to that content.
That's a really interesting point. I suppose one of the questions I'd come at from that point is, so how do you find this out? How does someone go about and find out, what an IT manager, how they like to consume their content? Do you go away? Do you look at your CRM, your customer list, and pick out 4 examples and just call them up and say, hey, just doing a follow up. Wondered if you wouldn't mind answering a few questions on a questionnaire. How do you find out if your audience, takes their content in different formats and prefers it in different ways?
Yeah, so with us, because of the scale, it's been done across a period of time on a number of surveys. Again, we try and get where the relationships are really strong, obviously, is to get the sales team asking these type of questions, ongoing, so we can kind of keep a record in CRM. But again, it is difficult because, again, different people. I mean, if we look at like the facilities managers as an example persona, you go into any one of those groups on Facebook or LinkedIn, and the amount of ID card related content in there is minimal compared to, ongoing facilities managers content, should we say. As in it is part of their responsibility, but it's not the forefront. So, trying to build an audience within those channels has been challenging. Because there's a lot of content around it that ours kind of stands out a little as being the odd piece, because it's just something that's kind of, like I said, it's their responsibility, but it isn't what you would potentially class as a main responsibility of somebody in that role. But at the same time, we know people who are our buyers are in those groups. So you've got to be seen as not spamming those groups or just trying to sell. It's all about adding the value. And again, a lot of our content is solely focused around the awareness stage. And that's because there has to be a need for our products. We don't want to be selling to people directly when there isn't a need. It's, okay, well, yeah, I do use those products, or I use that particular printer. So awareness stage, back to the site. And then obviously we have the site set up and the structure to hopefully capture that as a lead, or again, get the contact information, or again, even get the customer to call. And we work very strongly once we've got them to keep them.
That's really cool. I like that a lot. I like the mentality, because obviously you do have to consider, certainly in your niche, your industry, which is you might not be the primary thought of one of your customers, but you've got to be a thought, and maybe it's a case of you have to start thinking about, well, how can I become the primary thought? How can I become the priority? Is it a case of well, we're going to make this as easy as possible for you to access my product, because you probably don't care much about it, but you need it, and things like that. It's thinking about your audience and your customer in that way, which people don't do.
Yeah, exactly. It's for us a big thing. Obviously, is the trust side of the brand. As in, I know I can get your product from one of 5 vendors. So, do I trust your brand? Do you have it in stock? Are you competitive on price? Do you have good reviews? So, that's where, once we have the awareness piece and then they're into the site as such, or into the brand, that the content literally changes, as in it then becomes obviously that they're, looking at, okay, well, why should I give you guys a try? What have you got that's different, as in number of reviews, case studies, any kind of awards, anything that really says to them, look, we can handle what you do. And that's that's what we've tried to focus on with throughout the site.
I suppose that highlights another really good way of being able to source content, and that is your competitor analysis. Because if you find that you are doing something that your competitor isn't, or your competitor is simply not doing something and they probably should be, then if you know your competitors inside and out and you can talk about that, you can highlight that. Maybe not say, no, these guys don't do that, but hey, we do. Yeah. That'll come off smarmy, and you'd be a bit of a, I was going to say something then, but I won't. But, you can utilize that to your advantage in terms of its content, because there might be a customer that at some point that's think, these guys don't do this, and that's really annoyed me. And that that puts you at the forefront of the mindset. And, even though you might not think about this on a day-to-day basis as a consumer yourself, you will find, and I know this from, doing stuff like picking software packages or SEO packages or whatever, you would find yourself going, well, these guys don't do this, and these guys, but I've never heard of these guys, but they do this. And so you end up trying them and finding out, which is another great way of sourcing that content and writing about it. So I suppose the next question leading on to this is, actually, before I get onto that, are there any other places where you can source these great content ideas? Is there a way of thinking about it differently, which can open up a huge sort of myriad, a Pandora's box, if you will, of content ideas?
I mean, again, like obviously centralized towards ourselves. The opportunities aren't as great as I've seen for other industries. So using obviously sites like Quora, subreddits, any kind of industry specific sites or forums that are particularly driven around your niche. Again, looking at your competitors' sites, is there anything you like on there that you can advance or change? various different, obviously, platforms, Ahrefs, keywords tool, LinkedIn, LinkedIn groups. I'd probably say those are the kind of, ones that I would kind of pinpoint to somebody who was just starting out and say, have a look in these different channels and start to get a feel of what's out there. One thing that we do quite regularly is look at top performing content across these different platforms, obviously bang it into Ahrefs and just see, what type of sites are linking to them, how many keywords does that particular piece rank for. You start to get a feel then of right, okay, there is a topic behind this, or there is a piece behind this, that I know people have linked to that post on a different site. So there's obviously some kind of value in that as well.
And you make another really good point, which is that user-generated content, because there are, why go and reinvent the wheel or thinking up these ideas when actually from a quick Google search or a quick look on Reddit or a quick look on Quora, which is a question answer platform, if anyone doesn't know, you can basically find people talking about the pain points that they have about this type of product, this type of industry, whatever it is, and it's there laid out in front of you. All you need to do is turn that around to your, what you do and how you can solve that pain, solve that issue, and you've got yourself some content and you can do it. And I suppose the other point is this idea of repurposing content. Don't think that you have to just write a blog post, bang, that's it. Okay, well now I have to come up with another idea. You can repurpose that content. Like you say, you can then repurpose it into video, which is red hot right now, absolutely red hot in terms of your social media channels and everything like that. If you can produce, I know it's a pain, but if you can produce video content which is good and good quality, then you can get your audience engaged that much quicker. I suppose the other side of it as well is also audio content as well. Audio content is becoming really hot right now with the likes of podcasting, such as this fantastic one, and that stuff as well. Audio content's coming back around as well. So don't disregard the old hat techniques. So you might think that podcasting's fallen out of favor, but you can repurpose that content. So you then have one idea, a blog, a video, and a podcast.
Yep, definitely. Yep.
Which is really interesting. So now you've got this myriad of ideas, and then you've got all of these different ways which you can then reformat and repurpose these ideas. Not just, I suppose the other point is not just in long form, but in short form as well. How do you organize these ideas? I mean, you're part of what sounds like a big company. You've probably got people yelling at you. Say, if you've got your setup right, you've got your sales people yelling at you, customer service people yelling at you, your Hotjar yelling at you, all at the same time saying these people want this. How do you then organize those ideas and thoughts, not just for a big organization such as you guys, but for a small organization as well? How do you organize them into priority order to figure out what you do and how you do it?
Yep. Just for that one, it's literally jumping back to, I think it was question 2, is matching it to your goals. So identifying obviously the best type of content. And again, why do you feel that is the best type of content? Is that going to get you, the kind of brand recognition? Is it going to bring you the traffic you're looking for? Is it going to bring you the leads or the upgrades or the sales? That's got to be kind of, the priority on this point as well. Because again, it takes time to produce good content. It takes time to promote it. If there's no goal behind those two things, then again, you're kind of wasting your resources, which a lot of small businesses, really can't afford to do. So I think, just matching it to the goals, make sure you're seeing something come off the back of it. If you're not, don't carry on producing. Go back and try and work out why you're not, and then obviously start again.
You've hit on a really good point there, which is that some people are told from agencies, freelancers, whoever, they are told, you want to rank well on Google? Okay, well, go away and write some content and you'll rank well on Google. And that's not the case. and you've hit on that point, which is if you're not providing content which is of value, which is unique, which is going to make people want to read it, then there's no point. You're wasting your resource, which is, the phrase you use, wasting your resource, wasting your time completely. So to have that pool of ideas to then pick from, I suppose, is actually a bit of a gold mine, because then you can go, well, I know this is important for this goal, like you said, I know this is important for this goal, which means that you're not wasting that resource anymore. And I suppose that's one of the basic errors that a lot of people do when they're thinking about content marketing and content in general.
Yep, no, definitely agree with that.
Organizing the thoughts and ideas is going to be obviously really key, and having that pool of all those content ideas is going to be key. I do have one question, which is more personal to you, but it's something that I'm really intrigued is, what's your favorite piece of content which you have structured and created, which has come out of this sourcing of ideas? Put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Good one, mate. Yeah, you're up there, haven't you? I would probably say it's not a one particular piece. It's a series of pieces that we've done, obviously in video format for our YouTube channel.
Okay, cool.
And it's the start of our learning centre kind of hub point that we're going to be putting live in early next year on the site. So it's basically looking at different questions around first-time printer buyers. So kind of the questions we were being asked from sales staff. So this is just direct, whether it's live chat or on the phone. What's the best type of printer for a small business? What's the difference between this type and this type? These are just day-to-day questions being asked. So what we've done is we've taken a lot of those and we've started to repurpose them into video content and blog content as well. So that there is a couple live on YouTube at the moment. If you search DigitalID, you'll find them. And again, there's more to be added that are behind the scenes at the moment. But that's been really good because it's kind of getting that information from the front line, going through this stage of how do we organise it, what's the best format, again, what's our goal. Because our site performs, really well in terms of organic. But what we were kind of missing was that little piece to differentiate us from a competitor.
Yeah.
And obviously with this form of video content and the brand, and I said it before, the kind of better visuals of the products with real people, we're finding that has a good success at the moment. So yeah, I'd say it's that video series around kind of learning centre content.
And then you've hit on another thing, which is you talked there about, and I mentioned at the start about everything tying together with content. Everything does tie in with content when we're talking about digital marketing. And what you've hit on there is user experience. And, you've come up with an idea for which can create and good content which will be valuable to you as a business and the consumer themselves, because they're not having to ask the question. It's going to come up and spring up to them instantaneously as soon as they've thought of the question that they're going to ask. And you've then you've been able to repurpose it as well, but you've in a medium which everyone's going to like, which is both in text or in video format, but that user experience is now so crucial to digital marketing now, and everything, like I say, everything ties in together. So you provided a better user experience for your users, which will not only help you organically, but is going to help you with how you're going to sell to your customers and what your customers think of you.
Yep, yeah, it's worked really well, the videos at the moment. So we're going to look at we've already started to kind of ramp that up. But yeah, it's been fun as well, which is good. It's got to be a fun side to it.
That always helps, doesn't it? I suppose.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, then, are there any hints and tips for people? Let's talk about small businesses now. Let's talk about startups, because I think that's really what this show is all about at the end of the day. But it is really important to get the ideas come down from big businesses such as yourselves. What are the hints and tips that you have for people that are trying to create content for their business? They're stumped. They have no idea what to do, how to do it, what to write about. They sell, the worst client I've ever had was selling sewage pumps, and you just can't make sewage pumps sexy. It doesn't matter how hard you try, pardon the pun, but you can't make sewage pumps sexy at all. So how do they go about thinking? What are the hints and tips that they need to know?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing, again, for smaller businesses that, like we said before, probably don't have a lot of resources. But what they do have is pen and paper, or again, iPhone to produce kind of more raw videos or raw content. Is kind of don't be scared of being different. So I actually was come across an interesting piece yesterday, which was looking at content and kind of said that people want to read and engage in content that they agree with.
Yeah.
So in essence, what that means is if there's something in your industry or in your niche that you kind of don't agree with, or you've got a different opinion about, then go out and say it.
Yeah.
Because what that means is your customer might be feeling the exact same way. And then what that leads to is them engaging with you as a brand, whether that's a like, a share, but it's the start of that relationship. And then again, the more consistent you are, the easier that your voice comes across. So a lot of brands will go in at the, I need to copy what such a brand is doing. So they start pumping out blog content and then nobody's liking or engaging it.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a brand that might be 10 times smaller, not making as much or turnover, but what they've done is they've spoke naturally, they've spoke raw, and then again they've had people like it and go, yeah, I agree with that. I was thinking that, that's not right in our industry. Then when the time comes that they are wanting to produce the content, whether it be for leads or traffic, they've already built that little bit of a following. And those people then become much easier to get on board, or again to get to the next level. So I'd say, yeah, just kind of, don't be scared of being a little bit different.
Absolutely.
Be consistent. And also the big one is when you're writing this content, you've got to think about how the customer is reading it. So what we always look at doing is kind of three things. So what's in it for the customer?
Yeah.
Kind of how will this improve their job or their day-to-day kind of activities? And then the last one that people will be kind of asking is like, so what? So what that you put this content out there? So as an example, if we take, for example, that I'll use obviously where I live locally in Stockport, that, if you're putting out a piece of content saying that you're Stockport's leading gardening service, your customers ask, or potential customers is like, so what? Yeah. I've heard that a million times. So really what they're actually wanting from that content is you're telling them that you're the leading gardening service, but actually by using their service and having a maintained garden, it's somewhere that your grandkids can have hours of fun in.
Yeah.
So straight away you've spun that content differently, and you've probably reached out and engaged with a lot more people because you've given them a so what, you've given them the answer.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of people just pumping content out that's bread and butter. And it's like, so what? Do I need to read it? You haven't told me anything about it. But if you use that little analogy and try and spin it, you'll find that it obviously gets that engagement up. And if people are engaging with your content, at an earlier stage as you're starting out, I think that's great for yourself internally, as in, you're taking action and people are responding to that content. And I think it also give you that little bit of push to keep that consistency high.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you mentioned there that the so what test. That's a very popular thing with someone that I know quite well. It's a digital marketer called Neil Simpson, and he has the so what test, and that he applies that to everything that he does. It's why does anybody care? What the hell am I putting? And he says, if everybody did that on social media, on their content, on everything that they did digitally, then the whole digital world would be a different landscape, and the idea of trolling would be dead. Even though that he's the worst troll I ever known in a million years, but the so what test is really, really crucial. And you made a really good point, which is always turn it back on the customer. And there's so many companies out there that just talk about me. This is what we do. This is what I'm good at. And this is how I do it. And the audience out there is just going, I don't care. Estate agents are the worst for this, by the way. I work with a lot of estate agents and it's all about me. This is what we do. We're fantastic. We're the number one. And everyone's going, yeah, so what? There's purple bricks, they can't touch you, and all this kind of stuff. And That's the key. Turn it back onto them. Why are you providing a good service for them? And you hit the nail on the head with the gardening maintenance service there. Absolutely. That's a really good tip for people to take on board.
Yeah, the big, and it's going back to it, features tell, benefits sell.
Absolutely.
That's the way, that you should look at it when you're approaching your content. Make it as easy as possible for people to understand, and again, how they're going to get that value from it at that stage. Because following that, the plan is then that obviously they engage, can wear your brand. Now that might not turn into an instant sale, an instant lead. But again, when they are ready to kind of move to that next stage, you've already got that little bit of an advantage that they know you.
Yeah.
And it might have seen that content elsewhere, but then they've gone online to do a search, just using Google. Oh, right, that's that brand that I read that article on such a thing, or I saw their video on. And now you might be ranking position 4 or 5, so you're not even top spot, but the brand recognition comes in that they trust you, they've seen something. Oh, well, I'm going to go on those guys first, So again, always make sure you've got your CTR optimized as well, for click-through rates on your meta titles and descriptions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also the other mistake that not every business, but a lot of businesses make is they always believe that everything that they do in terms of marketing is going to get an instant feedback, like you alluded to. I write something and it should get me a sale, and if it doesn't get me a sale, it's failed. That's not true. Okay, it's about a journey. It's about that conversion. You write an informative piece of content which helps a pain point, then you've helped that customer out, and you've helped that potential customer out, should I say, and they'll come back to you and they have a warm, fuzzy feeling about you next time they come back to you. And as long as you provide that journey for when they do return back to you, or you provide that journey from at the end of the piece of content and you go, well, if you like this piece of content, why don't you go and have a look at this piece of content? And this might be, this piece of content might be a bit more salesy, or it might get them to talk to your customer service team, or it might get them to do a little bit of a tool or something which gets them to at least onto your email list or whatever. And that's really important as well. It's not all about, what comes in must come out. It does go in and it will come out eventually. You have to realize that it's not just instantaneous, which I think a lot of business owners do want it to be, but I'm afraid the sad reality is it's, you have to put a bit more in than that in this new age of digital.
Yep, that's right. Yep, definitely agree.
All right, Adam, thank you so much. Before we, I obviously let you go, just tell everybody, where they can find you on social media. Tell me where you can find, your company and your business, and how they can find out more about you and your business.
Yeah, definitely. So, obviously, for anybody that wants to have a look at what we're doing, company is DigitalID. So it's www.digitalid.co.uk. We are on Twitter, LinkedIn. Myself personally, obviously on Twitter. Twitter handle is at Adam J Benno, Benno. So again, happy to chat with anybody regarding digital marketing, or a bit of advice, or any kind of analysis that somebody wants me to have a look at. We're always happy to give a hand there. And thank you, Tom, for the opportunity to speak on the podcast.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Adam, thank you so much.
Not a problem at all, Tom. Take care and enjoy your evening.
You too.
Cheers, Tom. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much to Adam Bennett there from DigitalID for coming on to the show and talking about sourcing ideas for content and arranging those ideas as well. I think we hit on a lot of really important points in that interview, which is all about the power of content and the importance of it as well. And I think some people believe that there's so much effort that has to go into it, then why bother? It's so difficult to get right, but it's only difficult if your ideas are poor. If you're not thinking about it correctly, you're not willing to put that effort in, that's the only time that you won't get the results from it. If you can hit on one piece of content which is going to be really excellent, a really good idea, something that people are actually going to want to read, the audience, more importantly, is actually going to want to read, then it can be really, really beneficial for you. So I don't think everybody should be discounting it the way that they should. Anyway, before we go on for this show too long, I would love to hear your questions, queries, and feedback about the show. So don't forget, you can get in touch with the Punkcast by emailing us at punkcast@digitalmarketingpunk.co.uk, or you can connect with me across all the social media channels. You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/digitalmarketingpunk, or you can find me on Twitter with at punk_digital, or Instagram at Digital Marketing Punk as well. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn by searching Digital Marketing Punk. It would also be great, if you haven't done so already, to subscribe to the Digital Marketing Punkcast. And if you really like the show, then you can help me out and show your appreciation by giving us a 5-star review on iTunes. That would be lovely. So until next time, I hope you will join me on the next episode of the Digital Marketing Punkcast. Thank you.